They have sold over 40 million records worldwide, one of the great legendary bands in music history. Lead singer Huey Lewis of Huey Lewis and the News. Huey, how we doing today, my friend?
Excellent, thanks. Excellent.
Wonderful, Huey. So take me back in time when you guys first got together there in San Francisco, and how did that all come about?
Well, I was in another band called Clover, and we broke up, and I started a little jam session on Monday nights, and just kind of picked my favorite musicians and sang all the songs myself. I didn't sing that much in the band I was in previously. I just mostly played harmonica, and so but just surrounded myself with all my favorite guys from the local guys, and we started doing it.
How did you guys come up with the group name Huey Lewis and the News?
Well, we were called Huey Lewis and American Express, which I thought was a rather clever name, and actually kind of what we sounded like, I thought. And on the eve of the release of our first record, with literally 24 hours to go, we had to come up with a new name because our label was afraid we'd be sued. Ironic, because now, of course, with all the corporate involvement in rock and roll these days, in those days there was none, literally none. And so we now know, had we waited a few years, we might have got American Express to bung in a little bit. We might have been able to help out.
One of the first hit singles for Huey Lewis and the News was a great tune called Do You Believe in Love? Now, was that written by producer Mutt Lange?
Exactly. Mutt Lange, yep.
And how did you guys get together with Mutt?
I rewrote it a little bit, but it's Mutt's tune initially. Well, he produced Clover when I was in the band Clover, and we became friends. And I still talk to him sort of regularly, yeah.
The first hit single from the amazing successful album Sports was the band's first #1 hit, Heart and Soul. Now, was that song first recorded by a band named Exile, then you guys got a hold of it? How did that all come about?
It was, actually, and I didn't know that. It was pitched to me as a demo, and I liked it. I said, sure. And then we cut it. And as we cut it, interestingly, we were cutting it in L.A., and as we were mixing that record, the studio next door was a group called the Bus Boys, who were cutting the same song. And so I went, oh, my gosh. And clearly the publisher had pitched it to everybody in sight. And,
oh, wow.
But I still, and I kind of heard it through the wall, and I still thought our version might have been better or had it better, so we continued with it. But yeah, that was just a pure song, pitched to me by a good friend who was the publisher at the time.
The third single released from the studio album Sports was one of my all-time favorite rockers, Huey, The Heart of Rock and Roll. I mean, when you play that at any event or any function, people just go nuts. And I know you co-wrote that tune, right?
Right, yeah.
And how did you come up with Heart of Rock and Roll?
Well, we had played Cleveland, actually, if the truth is, and we'd always heard that the Heart of Rock, Cleveland was a great rock and roll town.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, really? Why? What could be better than we're from California, L.A. or San Francisco,
Right.
And when we played our first gig at the Agora or somewhere, and it was really a great gig, and driving out in the bus in the morning, I mean, we really had it been a fabulous gig, and we looked out the window, and there was a sort of skyline of Cleveland, which is not, it's a kind of smoky skyline, if you will.
Right.
And there was these T-shirts that we'd seen that previous night that said, "Show the skyline of Cleveland." It said, "Cleveland, you got to be tough." And I thought, and it all kind of hit me at once there, driving out of town, our great gig, and looking at the skyline. I thought to myself, hey, the heart of rock and roll really is in Cleveland. It's kind of, guys are really, and I think I said that. I think I said, heart of rock and roll is in Cleveland. Hey, wow, that'd be a great idea for a song. And they all looked at me and went, wow. The Heart of Rock and Roll is in Cleveland, so I changed it to the Heart of Rock and Roll is still beating, but that was the actual inspiration.
And how were you guys handpicked to become a part of the Back to the Future soundtrack with the #1 hit, Power of Love?
Well, they asked, Spielberg and Zemeckis and Bob Gale, who produced, directed, and wrote the film, respectively, took a meeting with us and said they'd written this film, and this guy, lead character, Marty McFly's favorite band would be Huey Lewis and the News. How about writing a song for the film? And I told them we were flattered, but did not really write for film. But we just sort of send you the next song we write, which was Power Love.
And I still remember the music video on MTV for Stuck With You. You guys shot in the Bahamas. How did you and Chris Hayes come up with the tune Stuck With You?
Well, Chris had his music, and I just wrote the melody and the words to it. It was just, and it was, it was clearly a kind of a love song.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, why not put a little, love isn't always, love is funny sometimes, and love is this and that, angry, different, ironic, and so on. So I put a little twist on it.
And a bunch of you guys collaborated on the next tune, "Hip to Be Square," which was a part of the studio album 4. Who was all on that tune, putting that tune together?
Bill Gibson, our drummer, and I wrote it together, and then and I originally wrote it in the third person. He used to be a renegade, he used to fool around, and then I thought, and it was attempted to describe a phenomenon that was also described, in books and so on. There's a book called Bobos in Paradise, which says about Bohemians sort of dropping back in, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what the song was about. And then I thought it would be even funnier if I told it about myself. It was meant to be a kind of a laugh. And then we got in the most interesting part about the recording process, however, is that the shouts in the back here, there, and everywhere are Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott, Ricky Ellison, and Dwight Clark from the San Francisco 49ers.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Wow, that must have been a one heck of a studio day.
Yeah, it was fun because they were pals at that point, and so we had the idea to have them sing, quote unquote, on the record, and then we thought, well, that'd be the perfect spot. We did put them on "I Know What I Like" and "Hip to Be Square," and they were fantastic because there were only 4 of them, and we double tracked them, I think, and it sounded like 100.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, then the next record after that, we had a song called "Couple Days Off," and we wanted to shout. All I wanted was "a couple days off." We wanted that same sound, so we thought, well, we'll just do it ourselves, and we couldn't get that sound.
Huh.
And we had, because they're so big, the football players.
Right.
They have such big voice. So we ended up going to 49ers camp and recording them on a DAT and then spinning it across into our record.
How did you guys get in touch with Bruce Hornsby and his brother John to have the opportunity to record the next great single, "Jacob's Ladder"?
Bruce was pitched, a song of Bruce's was pitched to me by the exact same publisher who pitched "Heart and Soul," interestingly enough. And I liked one of his songs a lot, and I said, "Wow, I like this one, but I wanted to rewrite it a little bit." And so they said, he said, "Well, maybe let's talk to the guy. He's a great guy. You'll love it." So I got together with Bruce, and indeed did, but we became fast friends. And then and he confided to me that he really didn't want that song to be covered because he wanted to record it and maybe get a record deal of his own. I said, "Oh, great, sure." And then he asked me, he did get a record deal, and asked would I record, would I help produce a couple songs on it. So I produced 3 of his songs on his first record. And one of the songs